I'm kind of privileged to moderate this session. It's a learning session, I'm sure. And more importantly, I want to make it interactive. I haven't seen much interaction from the audience, so at least let's see whether we can make this interactive. Because I'm sure there is a lot to learn from the audience. You could be, or you may have used telemedicine, definitely during COVID at least, and also share your experience. So what we're going to do is talk on the importance of telemedicine or e-health as a general industry. To give context, efforts to go for e-health or digital health there had been some efforts from about 2010 by setting up a committee. Then a few years later, Cabinet approved few more measures, and now I think there is a blueprint available with, following a collaboration between the Health Ministry and the ICTA. And there had been several key initiatives taken. One is the electronic medical records. The other one is hospital health management information management system, and so forth. Maybe some of our panelists might be able to shed some insights in terms of the progress and the way forward. So what I'm going to do is ask each of the panelists to sort of stress, in their view, how important e-health is, and then we'll take a few other facets of this whole journey that we're trying to discover. Everyone agrees there is potential, and we don't have COVID now, and this momentum has sort of faded a bit. But I think going forward, e-health, in terms of improving efficiency and reducing cost, will be a key character of this particular facet of our lives. So I'll start with maybe, also in the panel, we have some innovative companies who have sort of fulfilled certain gaps in the e-health space. So I'll invite Shamsri Subramaniam, Chief Operating Officer of Digital Health, to perhaps start this discussion.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. So just as opening remark, first about me, so I'm from Doc 990 team, the digital health arm of Dialogue. And when we talk about telemedicine, like Nista said, we have a very strong mission on telemedicine. And what we try to achieve is enriching Sri Lankan lives by giving digital access to healthcare from wherever they are. So it's as simple as that, so that people don't have to move to get the best primary care, and they should be able to access healthcare from anywhere and everywhere. I think as an industry, we are all working towards the same, or maybe on different segments. So before I go into telemedicine, I'd like to give some statistics to say why we have such a mission and why it's critical even for our country. And so far, I mean, we've been so used to hearing all bad news in the country, but just to highlight one of the good news about our healthcare, which we all should know, it's a fact that Sri Lankan healthcare since independence has been a great success story in the region. I'm not sure if all of you know, in terms of statistics, in many indicators, Sri Lankan healthcare, they score very high in terms of when you compare with regional averages, especially in terms of even lifetime expectancy. So we should be very proud of our Sri Lankan healthcare system. But we always have a lot to do and long way to go. So to add on that, I would like to highlight some interesting statistics which we all should know and be aware of. If you look at the doctor to people ratio, the population ratio, in Sri Lanka we have 1 doctor for every 1,000 population, roughly. But when you compare this to global average, it's about 3.88 for every 1,000 population. So we know where we stand in terms of that parameter. But if you go deeper into that statistic, if you break it region-wise, if you look at Colombo, this ratio is 1:472. So, and when you compare it against other regions such as Hambantota, Puttalam, it's 1:1,600. So you can clearly see the gap which needs to be bridged, because the availability of healthcare is very concentrated in Colombo. Which is good for Colombo, but if you look at as a country, there's a big gap and there's a divide, healthcare digital divide, I would say. So that is something which is really critical to be filled, because as we all believe, every Sri Lankan should have access to affordable quality healthcare. So that is a gap which need to be filled, and as an industry, we have that responsibility to do it. But how do we do it? So when we look at how do you make sure some nook and corner of the country, people there get access to healthcare, you can't go open hospitals everywhere. So that's where telemedicine plays a very major role. That's what we believe. So telemedicine is the only way to bridge this gap. And if you look at what telemedicine is, it's not just, now currently the more kind of a common feature which most of us must be already using is the audio-video consultation with a doctor. But telemedicine is not just limited to that, I would say. It's a lot more. So if you extend it a little further, we have various segments like telepsychiatry, teledermatology, so there are many segments, and even teleradiology. So it's not just audio-video consultation, and it also extends all the way to virtual care. And this is a segment, or this is the vertical which will be very useful in our country, because virtual care is more of an ongoing, continuous support for the patient, and this is mostly used for treating chronic diseases. We know, I don't want to go into too much statistics, but chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension are the main diseases which are prevalent in our country, and even those are the main contributors for the death rate in Sri Lanka. So virtual care is something which can address that segment of the people and the patients, and we can offer better healthcare through telemedicine. So these are just some areas which I thought I should touch upon, so that people who are not familiar on this area will also get to know. So as you can see, there are many areas, but the most prevalent now is audio-video consultation. So we see a lot of potential in this industry, where we can go far beyond just audio-video consultation and cover virtual care, and it's more of a preventive system as well, where you don't go to a doctor when you really need, only when you really need, but you make sure you are covered through virtual care, and you can reduce your trip to a doctor. So that's the whole idea. And also, in terms of potential, I think later on we will be talking about the future potential of this industry and what is new here. So there's a lot of potential. So what we see is just that we are in the verge of a lot of breakthroughs in this industry. And we have very good players in the industry who I'm sure will get it out for us. And just to highlight some statistics in terms of industry potential as well, in terms of global, what they expect is by 2027, this market, telemedicine market size will be close to $600 billion, and with the 25% growth rate by 2027. But when you translate it to Sri Lanka, the statistics, what global statistics say, the expectation in Sri Lanka is by 2025, we're expecting to reach about 50 plus billion rupees market with an 8% growth rate. So as you can see, anyway, the adoption, like previous speakers also highlighted, the adoption is quite slow. So the growth rate expected is also slow, but even that we can do it if we really set out and envision the correct products that are needed for the market and put it out in the right time and in the right way. So we really feel from dialogue as well as industry, we really feel this is a very potential market, and it's not just a business model we are talking about. This can really impact Sri Lankan lives. So that is what the ultimate objective is, and that's what we are all working for. So that's all as an opening remark.
Thanks, Shamsi. Excellent data. Really shows the potential. You mentioned, is it 15 billion rupees at present? 15, yeah.
This year we're expecting to close around 35 billion rupees.
Oh, 35 billion.
5 years with 8%.
Okay, interesting. And it's growing. I'll move on to another innovative company, Dr. Paul Limited, founder and CTO, Ranjana Vijayaratna. I'm going to discover about this company, so I'm looking forward to hear what you have to say in terms of the potential.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting us, Dr. Po. And so I think that we are the new brand in Sri Lanka. So we are from the separate field actually. So we are generating the new era, actually digital world for the pet and vet industry. So we actually started our journey on the 2021, and we did the almost 1 year for the research. So understanding get the good understand and understand the problem and the solution we are facing in the pet and the vet industry. So with those solutions, actually we came up with that application also. Now actually I would like to give some features of our application because it's new for the Sri Lanka, and we generate, so we developed the pet owner application for the pet owners where they can register our application, they can register into our application, and we have the other applications for the clinic also where we are empowering the clinic and we are managing everything in the clinic and the hospital side for the pet owner side. So that's what our journey up to now, and let's talk about how we are seeing the telemedicine in the vet and pet industry. So according to the research that we did in the industry, what we saw is that main thing is that if you are going to telemedicine or something like video, audio call, actually that feature we have in our application also. But first of all, so when you are talking with the doctors in the field, what we found out is that there can be some problem because if you don't have the history with the pet, right? So even we have the video, audio call, actually it's difficult for them to diagnose the pet. So that's what we understood that. So that's why we are starting to develop the application with the digital ID with the pet. Then we are keeping all the health record with the pet with the digital ID. When it comes to the telemedicine, then doctors can go through the references and history and they can move on with the diagnosis easily. So actually that's what we saw with the telemedicine with the pet and vet side.
Okay, excellent. I'm sure we're going to discover more on the success of the new startup. I'll move on to Charaka Pereira, who is part of the senior management team at the SLT Mobitel and e-channeling. And we know e-channeling is a model for several countries having pioneered in Sri Lanka. Charaka, your perspectives.
Pleasant evening to, rather afternoon to all of you, and I would like to thank the FITIs and NISTA for inviting SLT Mobitel and e-channeling to be part of this lovely audience. See, before I give you an interpretation of the telemedicine and its explanations, I just want to enlighten this audience to say that we are living in a world where all our actions are making a certain disruption out there. And if you really look at, and if you connect this into digital healthcare, today the digital healthcare, if you really look at in an era, we live in an era where the preventive sicknesses are mechanized through precision medicine. So biology has now converted into technology. Right? The intersection between biology and technology is the norm of 21st century health. So this is the first thing that we as a company has identified. And now we are looking at how we could transform this to a next level of an experience is what SLT Mobitel and e-channeling is doing. The other thing is when we make these transformations taking place, I think it's a disruption altogether. When I say disruption, it's always, I consider we as a driver in an autonomous car, right? And in this disruption, if we can't make that difference, is something that we will fail. So we put a lot of effort in identifying the opportunity in this medicine or health emergence, how we could facilitate. So 20 years back, as Nista said, the e-channeling transformed the first friction of connecting the doctor. For 20 years, we have gone, 22 years, but now is where the real transformation has to happen in understanding this thing called telemedicine. Telemedicine and telehealth, I think in the best interest of the audience, all will try to understand as to what these two are. Well, I'll start with the telehealth. Telehealth is very, I would say, clinical services combined with the clinical together, but powered through a telecommunication partner and technology. So this is where the telehealth. So if you really look at, e-channeling falls under the telehealth. And then during the COVID, the 247 lines that we launched comes under this. And telemedicine is the game changer. I would say it's the clinical part of the telehealth. Right? Telemedicine today gives endless opportunities. I think the COVID itself transformed in our way of thinking to really connect to the households and how we could have a distant clinical service given. So I would say in-person cannot be always avoided. So there is an element of in-person has to come in. But then when it comes to the diagnostics, this is where the telemedicine can come in very handy. So if you go on to understand the benefits of telemedicine at today's context, if you really look at the cost is one. And then we all as patients going into the doctors, we only spend about 20 minutes. Balance 80% is out there trying to connect ourselves. But this is where the opportunity lies in. Right? So if you really look at, as a whole, my take, I think my colleagues shed a lot of thoughts in statistics, but here we are in a world living in a lot of opportunity that we can disrupt, and as a company, as e-channeling and SLT Mobility, is working towards this infrastructure, making national policies, making a lot of ecosystems out there, because you cannot automate anything without putting the infrastructure right. So that's where I think we are putting a lot of thought in. So that's my take, Mr.
Excellent. Good insights from all, I think, in terms of the potential. I'd like to ask Samshri, in terms of, you mentioned about early stages and slow adoption. From a digital health, from a dialogue perspective, where do you see, where do you find the inspiration in terms of, in this evolving situation? What really keeps you going in terms of trying to further the market and the business?
Yeah, so I think what keeps us going, to answer that, because it's not just looking at statistics and saying we have the potential. But when you look at the fundamental infrastructure to have this facility out there is connectivity, which comes through data, internet, and as we all know, we know the penetration of smartphones, we know on an average 65% data penetration we see in Sri Lanka. And if you look at the number of mobile phones, it's more than the population of Sri Lanka. So predominantly mobile phone usage and data usage has been widely accepted, and it's like a household utility now in the industry. So thanks to all the telco players who put out the right products and built the infrastructure for us. So that is the fundamental infrastructure required to have this connectivity, to serve this telemedicine products. So we see that is very well established. And the other opportunity we see, like I mentioned, is that healthcare availability is mostly in Colombo. But when you go out, we still see so many rural areas and even some urban areas where there's not enough medical services, or they have to, like we know day to day, we all must be seeing where people come all the way from Trinco to see a doctor in Colombo or anything like that. So there's a lot of the specialist consultations have to happen through a lot of pain for the customers. So we see these pain points, and we also see the opportunity to address the pain points with the infrastructure we already have. So those are the two key drivers which gives us a confidence that we can bridge the gap, as well as this will help the society. So it's not just profit, but also in turn, people will profit out of it, or benefit out of it. So that's the key driver which keeps us going, and we still believe that potential is still there. We just need to figure out the right business models and the right segments and the products to go out there. So right now we are still scratching the surface, and what we are all working on is on the basic thing which I said, the audio-video consultation, and little bit of maybe e-pharma, where people get medicines delivered and maybe get mobile lab services at their home. So those are the basic telemedicine products which are already out there and widely accepted already. But there's a long way to go even in telemedicine. So that's why we believe. And we also have the other, maybe the investment appetite plus the partnership ecosystem. So all of that we have. So we believe we can even, because the next level telemedicine is all about wearables, devices. Even our vision is to have those devices as pervasive as thermometers in household. Because right now, having a thermometer in the household is not a big deal. So similarly, we should have those devices in every household, which will help them monitor their vitals and communicate it to the doctor without even going to the doctor. So that's the vision we have, and we believe that we have the infrastructure to bring it to reality. So that's what keeps us going, Mr.
Okay, thank you. I also want to know, Charaka, in terms of, I know there was a fantastic story about e-channeling. From a pioneer perspective, there is always this, what's called the one problem of the adoption is the cost. E-channeling continues to be perceived to be costly. Maybe even for dialogue might be able to, but is that a real, what is the cost behind it? You think affordability, despite the convenience and cost saving, people still find it's too expensive. Where do you see we will make it more affordable?
How I could address that is, Nesta, again, I would like to go back to the infrastructure a bit. Because if you really look at this Doc 990 e-channeling is very Colombo-centric. So if you really look at the affordabilities and all, it has not been a problem so far. So I guess we very recently did a price revision, and apparently this price revision was done after 20 years. We were in the 99 ticket for long years. Now, thanks to this tax escalations, the economic distress all put together, we pushed to make it 399, the doctor channeling, because if you really look at the doctors also have changed it. So how I would like to say is, well, this is where I think the wow factor is out there. If you really look at the statistics of the healthcare industry, right? We have to be happy the processes in which the entire healthcare system has evolved is in a fantastic stage. So if you ask me, the process is properly mapped. What's missing is connecting the dot and giving that digital experience. So for that, that's why I said, as a company, if you really look at this nation's infrastructure to connect widely and at least to give an internet penetration to about more than 50%. And today, I think all of the telco operators have facilitated of giving you mobile connections more than the population. So we have 32 million connections, than 21 million connections. So we have smartphones. So all these have to facilitate to ensure that the cost comes down, and we have to go into the grassroots. So grassroots transformations have not happened. Now, if you really look at on a state perspective, 50% of opulent patient to 95% of hospitalizations, about 99% of, I would say, people visiting hospitals, all are in the state sector. So when you, at least, this given free. So I guess we can, as companies, e-channeling is next move is to, see how we could go to the grassroots, go to the 70% rural sector and make that transformation. So that's where we closely work with the health ministry, and then we work with the national medical regulatory authorities to create a pharmaceutical ecosystems. Because if you really look at the experience in all of this, we are, as I said, Nista, we are only addressing one part of it. It's only connecting the doctor. But there are so many other things to look at. So if you go and connect this, obviously the cost can come down. So this is the next phase of transformation, because we are anyway pressed to do it. So that's my take.
Okay, thank you. Ranjana, I just want to share with us what, I don't see, it's a critical assessment. I would like to see more startups in the e-health space. You are one of those startups, and you have got into pets.
Yes.
I just want to know how difficult it was and what has been the sort of, early learnings for you. I know it's 1 year, it's just 1 year old, right?
Yeah, actually, 1 year for we did the research, right? So because this will be the new era, we have some system, and but we want to understand the problems in the pet owner side and the clinical side also. And other thing is that what we understood is that when we go to the market, there are many services for the pets and the vets. For an example, grooming, laboratory, lodging, there are many somehow. But what we understood is that there is no single place, single platform to connect everything. So that's what we focus that. So with the Dr. Po platform, what we are doing is that we are getting everybody into one place. Right? We have the pet owner, we have the service provider, we have the clinics, we have hospital and everything there. So all the requirement is there. And other thing is that what we want to do is that actually creating the more business for the service providers. Otherwise we can't get the new service providers into this field. So that actually what we want to do is that. And other one is that what we understood, we are not only focusing on the Colombo area, but when you go to the out of the Colombo, we are facing some problem. For an example, if you are going to implement our system into the Ratnapura or Avisavel area, so those areas can have some internet problem. And those areas, the pet owners are sometimes out of the technology. They don't have the good experience with the technology. So then how we are syncing with the pet owners and the doctor, because we are providing the pet owner application and the pet owner doesn't know how to operate that one. And the clinic side also, sometime when you are going to train in the clinic, they are also some out of technologies, because there are a lot of manual process there. So we wanted to convert everything into the digital side. So that what we plan. So then what we do is that actually, for an example, when it comes to the pet owner side, the pet owner application can download the pet owners, or else if they can't download and operate that one from the clinic side, we put everything operation into the in-house clinic. So if there is a pet owner, he doesn't have the pet owner application, still the doctor can enter all the health data there. So that's how we are building the health card for the pets, likewise. And the other thing is that, so when you implement, for an example, let's think that, so we are going to introduce the telemedicine, the Jaffna, there can be some internet issues. So what we offer is that, so we are not telling that every time you need to take the video call, you can just take the normal call and process that one. So that's it.
Yeah, what's your revenue model in that? What's your revenue model has been, and in terms of in the startup, it's on a subscription basis.
Sorry?
Your revenue model?
So actually we are installing this free for the clinic and the hospital, and the download also free. So our revenue model is that we are charging for the service charge for the appointment. Only we are generating.
Okay, fine. Thank you. I'm sure I want to engage with the audience now. Can I see a show of hands who are used telemedicine in some form? I see some young students as well. You guys have to get engaged here with the panel here, definitely. Okay. Be active, because I think that's important. Any questions so far for some of our innovators here? Or ideas that you feel that is being not provided or can be met in the future? Any contributions from the audience? Yes, please. Can you get some mics around? I have questions, but I want the audience to get more insights instead of your specific needs. At the corner.
Hi. Actually, I think I'm for the telemedicine as well as the video conferencing and stuff. But on the other hand, now all the infrastructures and everything, it's already been laid. that we have the internet as well as the platforms are there. But what about the regulatory or the from the health sector side? Well, I'm asking the regulator from the Ministry of Health as well as from the doctors and the people who are really involved in the health sector, the regulatory wise, do they have the authority as well as power to something like prescribe? But on the other hand, yes, if we take a consultant, what they are taking their decision completely based on the reports what they are getting. Then, of course, we can do. But from the regulatory side, there's a big gap which we need to fill, I think. Somewhere in 2004, I can remember Medical Association, they were trying to do some policy document on this digitalized health sector. But actually, I don't know exactly what's the status of it currently. Would like to know something better from you.
Excellent question. Yes, we are missing a state sector or health ministry person in the panel, but I'm sure there'll be some thoughts from the from rest of the panel as well, and I'll come back.
Right. So I think I can take the regulatory thing. It was a good question that you gentlemen, you raised it, because frankly speaking, telemedicine to whatever the regulatories are being done. And if you really look at, if you go back to the establishments of, I think there was a national e-health policy document that they have done. So we are still on that. Since nothing is been updated. So there are a set of doctors are called health medicine-driven, personalities. They all have got together and now they're formulating one at the moment. So because if you really look at the health medicines together, all put together, still there is no a proper document to regularize the telemedicines or whatever said and done on the last mile deliveries of the drugs. So all are currently being done. So still we are running loose. The advantage why it's given as a test run in Colombo is because whatever we are talking is very Colombo centric, right? So that's where it is not being felt at the state sector. So but at the moment, the good news is they are doing the regulatories, ordinances, all are being currently done.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. My question is very interesting, the discussion. Each company, if you could explain what are the United Nations sustainable goal, which includes community development, that is one of the mandatory requirements, our responsibility. If you all can have 1 minute or every one of us explain us what are the sustainable development would be taken place, that could be one of the fundamental area where leading companies are doing. Thank you.
Okay. Samashri, maybe SDGs?
Yeah. See, I think e-channeling currently is taking under the, if I'm getting you right, sir, under the ESG platform, we are trying to now, we already launched a concept called eco-channeling, where the last mile drug deliveries are all delivered only on the medicine. So we are eliminating all of those and see how we could contribute. And if you really look at the ecosystem in which the medicines to consultations all put together, there are a lot opportunity in building a sustainability-driven methodology. So that's an opportunity. So as I said, that all of us being operators, we are only a one connect out of many. So we have to work with the government, and I think after the COVID, it really opened up. That's why we as a company, SLT Mobitel, working with the government to see, as like this gentleman said, so whether we can regularize this properly. So under that, we have categorically mentioned the ESG initiatives to come in and see how we could contribute to this. So it's been addressed for the time being.
Samash.
Just to add to that, that's a very interesting one e-channeling has picked, but from our perspective, we are focusing completely on inclusivity. So that's why when we design our products, if you look at our portfolio, one of our products is a subscription package for the mass. So where for a per day 2 rupee package, the customer gets access to a doctor 24/7. So we try to develop products which can be, of course we can't give it completely free. We do certain other things in that space, but on a general business model itself, we have products which can reach to the normal person, because healthcare for now, even if you go to a normal GP, it's at least 500 rupees. So what we are trying to build is a subscription package, or not that we're trying to, we already have it, and it's quite successful. We see quite a lot of take-up, and even the we do get the utilization perspective also. Those customers actually call and consult doctors. So it's quite a successful model, and from our business perspective, we get this inclusivity aspect addressed as well. And it also, like all the time we were talking about telemedicine, we talked about how infrastructure is so important, data, internet connectivity, smartphone. So, but we also have a model where you don't need data or internet, you just need a normal phone, which I'm sure everybody has. So through a normal phone also, you can call and consult a doctor. So that's mHealth, which is a very basic model, but that is still very relevant in our country, where you see areas where people don't have access to data, or they are not tech savvy to do it, or they are not interested to adopt. So we have products like this which can reach to the lower level of the population, so that we make it more affordable, and they are also included in the overall development of the industry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, we are talking about allopathy, that's good. But then we also can think about alternative medicines, about homeopathy or Unani, Siddha. So why are we not even thinking on those lines?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Actually, this is something we thought of it early this year. So we are looking at it, and we also, like how we go into traditional hospitals and acquire them and give digital booking, open up digital bookings to them. We have seen this as a very promising sector as well. Even during COVID times, we saw there were so many interesting, that the way of treatment and curing was more more positive on the Ayurvedic and the other alternate medicine segments. So we have looked at it, and that is one of our focus areas we are looking at now. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent questions from the audience, actually. Someone yeah, at the back, yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashraf Amin. The thing is it possible to make a nationalized policy to make a centralized database, interconnection with the GPs and the pharmaceuticals, everyone together? Why we can't make it like that, one?
Sri and I both can loop in. See, I think you mentioned something very interesting, the GPs, right? I think if you really look at the government practitioners, they don't have an ecosystem to be connected and have that experience of what we give it to the hospitals. So these are currently being done. I think to a certain extent, a lot of the players have, done this, but it has again become very Colombo-centric. So imagine you find, the GP in your territory, because if you really look at all of us, in Sinhala we say the Game Dostar Mahatya, right? So we first go to that person. So that ecosystem has never been developed. If that is being developed, then obviously it connects to the pharmacies, and then they have their own ecosystem in their town and territories. So good that you brought up. So this is exactly why we are here as an industry, players, because we are no longer only connecting the doctors. We are now looking collaboratively, see how we could change this ecosystem. So I'm happy that you're bringing these questions up. So it's been addressed.
Thank you. There's one more here. Okay.
Good evening. So I have a question, like, there are some disease prevalence. Sometimes there are influenza, sometimes there are chicken pox. So with your solutions, you store disease prevalence data, and can you give an insight to the medical community where, they can prevent or, take measures? Thank you.
No, I don't have a direct answer to that question, but it's a very useful idea, which I'm sure it's a great idea, and we are open to it. We don't have any restrictions on that, but we haven't done it so far, and we haven't had any requests also, but it's something we can support the government sector with.
I think during COVID, there was apps which enable people to, find out which, areas are spreading or there are more cases. I think valid suggestion as well. Even dengue, I think it can be another possible, disease that which we find, which will be good going forward. Ranjana, you want to say something?
Yeah, so actually when it comes to the Dr. Po, we address that part. The reason is that at the beginning I told that we are building the health card, health history. So in the Dr. Po, actually what we did is that we have the databases and we have the data tool where we can analyze. So now, we found out that, so actually I'm talking with the animal side. So when we take the breeds and the age and the several ages, they have the diseases, and what we are doing is that we are saving into our databases and we are mixing into the health data and we are find out the insight with them and analytical data. And so sometimes, so when we have the analytical data, so actually sometimes we can find out the early stage diseases like cancer, it can be gastritis. So the animal also like a human, so they also have the diseases like what we have. So the Dr. Po side, actually, currently we have the data mining tool, and we are saving all the health data, and actually we can find out the diseases through our application.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a question.
Yes, sometimes back, e-channeling had a plan, right, to integrate the government channeling system as well, right? I want to know where it stands currently, because I think when e-channeling had its monopoly, it's like 60% of the back ends of private hospitals also being given by e-channeling for channels, right? But even if you see up to date, its OP split is 50-50 states and private, and IP stands at 80-20. And even if you say 50-50, it is only for the pre-medical care, they go for private. Post-medical, again, they go back to the government sector mostly. So I just want to know how this Doc 990 as well as e-channeling going to make this as a state thing, where even if you walk into a government hospital today, everyone stands in the queue, it's not systemized, and people wait for hours, the efficiencies and everything falls apart. So I think it's one of the leading two channeling digitalized people to take that responsibility, and also Mobitel being a part of the state, it's a very free lobbying, not free lobbying, it's easy lobbying that you have. So I want to understand where this stands at the moment.
Yeah, before Chalaka, I think very valid point. I don't know whether we have anybody from the government, public health sector. Also the automation, before you talk about e-health or digital health, it's all about automating some of the state hospitals as well. I mean, we don't have even in the OPDs, just still first come first serve basis without a token, right? So, I mean, first steps like that can be implemented, but thanks for bringing that aspect into the discussion. Yeah.
See, I'm excited to see, these insights coming from, sir like you. See, actually speaking, one of the biggest challenges we have with the national hospital, I would say the ecosystem. And that's why I said, when we know the opportunity, 95% of the hospitalizations happen in the state sector. So we are just 5% trying to make a business. It's not the way forward. We understand it. So there are a lot of challenges going by in making this transformation. As you know, the ministry itself is a challenge sometimes. There are two phobias. One is the technophobia, the other one is a purposeful phobia. Right? So it's not been allowed to do it. So that's why we are pick and choose some of the hospitals and trying to make this, because we cannot make this automation without addressing their backends. So even in the hospital, I'm talking the private sector-based hospitals, they can be tech savvy, but still there are a lot of challenges we as players will have. So I would say it's a long shot, if I'm to, be very honest with you, right? But easiest thing we can do is to help the GP out there, and then come into this and see how in this ecosystem we can do. Because it's nice to say that we are going out there, but if you ask me, running in the e-channeling, I will not take that lead now, and I would go and see what are the quick fixes I can do. And if you can make that ecosystem to the GP channeling, then you have more of a base operation, at least a concentration of about 10-kilometer radius. So that's how we are trying to come into the play. But on the infrastructure side, we are supporting a lot. That's where Mobitel comes in and giving this facilitation to a greater extent. That's how we came with this 247 line, getting the entire nation connected. So that is now we are getting into, as Nista also said, I think one of the gentlemen also said, we go into the dengues and all of this, the communicable diseases, we give access to them. So they can at least get an advice. So there's so much of opportunity. Yes, we want to go, but not immediately.
Can I add? Yeah. So just to answer your question, sir, like how Charak also mentioned, that's definitely one of our key focus areas to help the government sector digitization. Luckily for us, we've been able to have a successful interaction with Lady Ridgeway Hospital. So I think some of you must be already knowing, it was in the news and stuff. So we have given our channeling platform to LRH, I think 3 years back, and it's in operation. But like Charaka mentioned, it's quite challenging in terms of operationalizing. It was quite challenging and training the staff and for them to adopt to it. But I think now it's stabilized. So the director was very more forward and wanted to take it up. So because of that top level push, it actually worked. And the platform is in operation in LRH already. And we've been speaking to a few other government sector clinics as well to help them. Yeah.
Thank you. We are supposed to wrap it up, but I'd like to give one opportunity for the young who have been very quiet. Any question or an observation? Any volunteers? Okay. The future of telemedicine is silent? Okay. Okay, fine. So, time is up, but I think it's very good discussion in terms of trust factor of telemedicine, also the capacity, and of course connecting the public sector, which is the first go-to from a public perspective. But I think there is hope because there is innovation happening in the private sector. There is thirst for, in terms of expanding, and as well as there is scope and future demand as an industry, as a growing business. So there is always opportunities for startups. There is opportunities for government to sort of go digital from as much as possible. So I'd like to thank all the panelists for being very insightful, and more importantly to the audience for making it very interactive. So thank you very much. Give a round of applause to our panelists.